So I have talked about autonomous vehicles on the podcast a couple of times already. I've mentioned it, like the DARPA challenge in 2004, but I think you also, you definitely know kind of the timeline that autonomous vehicles have had. So if you could maybe just spell that out for us, because maybe the entire audience doesn't necessarily know like where these kind of important points when it comes to autonomous vehicles have actually happened.
Yeah, well, so I mean, like the DARPA challenge was the kind of the first realm or pass into like saying like, really, is this possible? Is this doable? And then more recently, there's been huge innovations happening that are part of cars everywhere, right? So I assume if the audience isn't familiar, there's these 5 levels of automation that people talk about. Level 3 is what we're at right now, which is a whole lot of like driver assist, cruise control, all these types of things, and it's in cars everywhere, and it's increased safety, and that's pretty well understood. The big pushes that are happening are what's coming, which is level 4 and level 5. And level 4 is that you can drive, or an autonomous vehicle can drive itself without the need of someone intervening, right? Which is, what a lot of AVs are right now, is actually that there's a safety driver and can take over. But the idea is that they could do that without someone intervening in specific situations. And what do we mean by specific situations? So, on freeways, on maybe most roads in a city, but not all roads in the city. Maybe they can't deal with like really complicated intersections, and maybe they can't, deal with rural roads or like unpaved areas, right? So that's level 4, and then level 5 is that it can go anywhere, right? So like, and my guess is like level 5 might never happen, and in fact, it's not even that important that it happens. Level 4 is the really big kind of turning point. And in terms of like recent things that have happened, I actually don't remember all the dates right now. It's been a while since I've talked about these things. But a few years back, the first AVs arrived in the level 3 AVs arrived in the U.S. Uber started that in Pittsburgh, and at the same time it was happening in Asia. And that, for the first time, there was a car that someone could get in and take them around with a safety driver, but that would be driving itself. Those things have continued to evolve. Waymo right now has a service in the Phoenix area where they have level 4 automation. So this is where someone can get into a car who is not a Waymo employee, like you or I can get into a car, call it, comes in, we get in, it takes us somewhere, and there is nobody in the car except for us, right? There's absolutely nobody. And that's been happening, God, for, I want to say 2.5 years now, right? And now the big question is continuing that deployment, expanding it. 2 years ago, Waymo opened a plant in Detroit to actually create AV vehicles. So take standard vehicles that they're purchasing and transform them into autonomous vehicles. So this wasn't like a shop to like do one at a time. This was a plant to help plant, mass produce these things. And that is, the pandemic has definitely stalled things out as well. But that is still, we'll say it's not full capacity right now. It's not like running tons of cars through this. And we started to see new deployments. So level 4 has now been, and the ability for AVs to take passengers around as a commercial enterprise is now allowed in California, and there's some permits that have been put out for that. So we're seeing this development of AVs, slow development coming out. And one of the things that I really want to mention is that a lot of people ask, when will AVs arrive, right? When is this going to be here? And the thing that I think it's important for people to understand is, on the one hand, they've already arrived. In other words, they exist in places, right? And on the other hand, there is no like one answer of when it will arrive, because it's arriving at different times in different locations, right? So, so some of the questions asked, like, when will AVs arrive on freeways, right? So that we can go, anywhere in the U.S., let's say, in a freeway. Or when will we be able to have like a metro area that has all the AVs AV allowed, right? Or having companies be able to work there. Or when will it be allowed in a place that has snow, right? So, right now the places they're deployed are sunny areas with we'll say milder weather, and typically, for Arizona, large streets with not a ton of pedestrians, right? So you have to think about this slow sequential rollout in terms of where it's going to be and when. Is it going to get to New York City tomorrow? No, right? New York City is going to be way down the line. It's so much more complicated of an environment. Is it going to be in in Amsterdam? Well, that's way down the line. That's a really complicated environment just for the number of people, but also the urban form, right? Paris, really complicated urban form. These small, windy streets, really strange intersections. So you can think about this kind of slow deployment happening over time. And the first ones, as you see right now, cities with grids, large streets, and mild weather. And a lot of the testing right now is actually like to expand that range.